we have a quorum, right? I'll call the June 18th public hearing to order at 6:45. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Read the public notice into the record. Notice is hereby given that the Southbury Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 18th, 2026 at 6:45 p.m. in room 205A of the Southbury Town Hall to hear comments on the following: the proposed removal of snow and ice from around fire hydrants ordinance. Copy is on file at the town clerk's office and also at www.southburyconnecticut.org. Derek, I don't know if you want to do a brief discussion. You pretty much did last time, but do you have anything to add? Okay. We'll just, we'll skip that, and just if we have questions for you later, we'll come to you. Does anyone from the public have comments either for or against the proposed ordinance? If so, you could step right up to the mic. Just identify yourself and your address, please. Make sure you press that button so the green light is on.
Hello. Good. Good evening, Selectmen and board member. My name is Pranad Mis. I'm one of the Southbury resident. My address is 137 Horizon Hill, Southbury, obviously. So I'm here to obviously respectfully urge to reject the proposal. And this is due to a couple reasons. So first of all, myself and my neighbor, obviously, some of them could not be here because they have to travel. So we all fully support the public safety. We want to ensure the fire hydrant is remain accessible for emergency responder for public safety. However, public safety is a shared responsibility. And it shouldn't be a responsibility of the homeowner alone, whoever adjacent to the property owner. And the next thing is fire hydrant are public asset installed by the town and maintained by the town, and is a benefit for the entire community. So residents do not choose whether a hydrant is installed near the property, nor do they have authority over its location or maintenance or operation of it. So this ordinance would be require a small subset of homeowners, such as myself, to responsible maintain the infrastructure that serve as public at large for the whole community. And the proposed to have it 24-hour compliant requirement is also unrealistic. Many residents, some of them are elderly or disabled, out of town, or working extending hour, for example, otherwise physical, unable to clear the snow immediately following a storm. Compliance may be impossible during significant weather event, particularly when roads have not yet been fully cleared by the municipal crews. So in some cases, hydrant cannot even be safely accessible until the town has completely plowed the operation. And furthermore, the ordinance further create a troubling disparity amongst taxpayers because all Southbury residents contribute through their property tax to fund municipal service, including public works, road maintenance, and fire protection. Yet only homeowners who happen to live adjacent to a hydrant would require to perform labor and face fine occur removing this, the snow. So this effectively imposed a special obligation for a small resident without any corresponding benefit or compensation. I also want to concern about the potential liability issue. Obviously, residents should not be expected to perform working within public right-of-way without clear legal protection. If a resident is injured while clearing a snow around the hydrant or inadvertently damage municipal equipment, the ordinance provides no guidance regarding the liability or indemnification. I have one more point to call out. Finally, the enforcement provisions are excessive. The ordinance authorized the town to charge, remove costs, impose fine, and place lien on private property. So such penalties are disappropriate for what is essential a municipal maintenance responsibility. At the minimum, any enforcement mechanism should include notice and an opportunity to cure before penalty are assessed. And lastly, I believe that if the town believes that the hydrant accessible require additional attention, there's probably a better alternative. The town, for example, the town could incorporate like a hydrant clearing into their existing snow removal operation, prioritize hydrant during plow activity, or even encourage the community, volunteer community group, or establish some type of adopt a hydrant program that encourage residents to assist voluntary rather than through mandatory enforcement. Lastly, public safety is best served when municipal infrastructure remain a public responsibility. And myself and the rest of my neighbor respectfully ask the Board of Selectmen to reject this ordinance 15.4 and pursue solution that fair, practical, and consistent with responsibility that already funds through local taxation. And with that, thank you for your listening and your consideration. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor or opposed?
Good evening, Selectmen and fellow residents. My name is Dan Fuller. I'm at 660 Main Street North, and we have a hydrant in the state right-of-way on our property. We've been there a little over 33 years. We take care of the hydrant ourselves. I don't have any intention of giving it up in the next 30 years or so. We're generally supportive of the idea. I do have a few questions. Is the ordinance a result of a particular reoccurring problem that's not necessarily town-wide? Does it apply equally to businesses as well as residential areas? Does it apply to me, as we're on a state property, state right-of-way? Again, generally supportive of the idea, but I would like to hear a little bit about the reasons for it. I'm also concerned about the open statement that the selectman or his designated agent may cause the snow or ice to be removed, and the expense thereof shall be chargeable to the owner whose duty it was to remove such snow or ice, without any indication of how much it might cost or any estimate. So I do have a concern with that it's kind of an open bill to us as taxpayers. And then my comment is, growing up in Watertown, I think they were auxiliary here. I believe we have a firefighter junior corps. Has the idea been brought up of using a junior corps to clear hydrants as part of their service required or something for the fire department? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wants to make a public comment for or against? If there's no further comments, we're going to close the public hearing, and we'll move on to our Board of Selectmen meeting. We'll have to wait till 7 o'clock for that.
I have a question. Do we have a list of how many homeowners this ordinance would affect? Because I know a lot of the hydrants are in places that are like apartments and Heritage Village, where it would be the maintenance organization, it would be their responsibility. So I would be curious to get kind of a breakdown.
Well, that was at the last public hearing also. This slide was put up here. There's 280 hydrants on private property. That's Heritage Village, East Hill, the shopping plaza.
Yeah, but
property.
that's not how many people it's at the end of their driveway, you know, not where it would be the actual homeowner who would be responsible, not the maintenance.
Derek, do you have an answer for that?
Good evening, everyone. Derek Gerton, Fire Marshal. Thank you for the public comments. To answer your question, it's going to affect approximately 100 people. The 50 underground storage tanks are primarily on residential property, and then there's approximately 50 hydrants that would affect homeowners directly. The rest are on adjacent commercial properties, or of the 75 hydrants that are not on the private property. So the 280 hydrants on private property, those are all spoken for by contractors and private developments. So at the end of the day, it's about 100 homeowners.
So most of them would, if they weren't cleared, would be the responsibility of the maintenance of
Correct.
that? Okay.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Of course.
So a lot of what was said in public comment has kind of echoed some of the concerns that I had when we first talked about this, about like notice requirements, things like that. The way that it's being done now, when you showed us pictures of uncleared hydrants, ultimately they do wind up getting cleared by Public Works, right? Who's doing it? Is that the fire department's doing it? Who's doing it? And do we have any idea of how much that's costing us?
So currently, there's no plan in place to clear the hydrants. I took over the town as the fire marshal approximately 2 years ago. Last winter, we had a significant snowstorm, to answer your question earlier. And when that happens, I go out to all the target hazard areas. I go to the senior living facilities, the schools. I make sure the hydrants are clear. I make sure the egresses are clear. And then from there, I branch out. So now I'm driving on Main Street. I'm looking at the hydrants. They're not clear. I reach out to Connecticut Water because there was a belief at one point from the fire department that Connecticut Water was responsible for the hydrants and clearing the snow. That's not accurate. They don't do it anywhere. At that point, I called the fire chief and I said, hey, we have a problem. If we have an incident, plan on bringing tankers everywhere because the hydrants are completely buried. At that point, he wanted to err on the side of the caution, and the fire chief assembled a group of volunteers to do it, which is a lot to ask of the volunteers when they're already preparing for storms and response and everything else that's going on. But they managed to get it done over the course of 3 or 4 days we went out.
Understood, okay. And this ultimately might be a question for the first selectman, but have we assessed what it would cost us for Public Works to do this, as opposed to it falling on the homeowners? And one of the reasons that there are certainly homeowners that are able to come before us and speak about their concern, but as I echoed in the last time we talked about this, I am very worried about particularly senior population homeowners who maybe physically cannot do it. And I'm worried about that population of folks. So I guess my question is, have we assessed the potential for the town to take this on? And I just don't know the answer to that.
We can, when we go to vote in the Board of Selectmen meeting, we can have that discussion.
Thank you.
At this point, if there's no other public comment, I'll call the meeting adjourned, the public hearing adjourned, and we'll go into our regularly Board of Selectmen meeting. That's at 7 o'clock, so we have 2 minutes.
Betsy, put that on the to-do list. Yeah.
As long as it isn't frozen.
Right, yeah.
Did you ever see that meme? It's like when this banger comes on, it's like that song from the 90s that was like our hold music. And it was pretty good. You know the one I'm talking about, like where you could kind of like get into it? We should get that.
All right, it's 7 o'clock, so I'll call the Board of Selectmen regular meeting, June 18th, to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is executive session. We are going to go into executive session to discuss a contract on solar at the transfer station. Oh, yes. For the record, we're inviting the town attorney, Tom Kalin, and Chuck Liddy, Sustainable Southbury.
I'd make a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Second.
they're treated a little different, you know? So really, I've been focusing on town hall, when I say town hall, senior center, public works, you know, everywhere. And then the police department. Cool. On police department, so public works, well, their computers are all, which is shocking. That was actually like it would actually happen. It's like, occur in the right way. Oh, for financing. And it's flat out. Yeah, we're slowly trying to get business. It's business like going this summer basically, so. I started publishing last year, so about a year.
gonna say, you're free to say whatever you want.
Yeah, no, we were all
Okay, we're back from executive session. It's 7:57. Next up on our agenda is public comments. Is anybody here that wants to make a public comment? I don't see anybody. Presentations, our IT director, Matt.
Good evening, everyone. I want to introduce myself first. Matthew Zinzi. I'm the new Director of Information Technology. First Selectman O'Neill asked if I would come and speak a bit about everything I've been working on since I came aboard in mid-February. So I put together a very quick presentation. Won't go into super specific details, but just wanted to touch on some items. One of the things that I spoke with a lot of folks when I came aboard is when it comes to technology, the most important thing you need to do is make an assessment of what you have. And that's been the primary focus that I've been working on since I started in mid-February, is a thorough, complete assessment of all technology across the entire municipality. What I'm going to focus on in this presentation and some of the items I'm going to be bringing up, I want to stress, does not involve the library. The library, due to, of course, what occurred with the flood, they're in pretty decent shape. They've had a lot of equipment replaced recently, as everyone knows. So the assessment that I've been working on, I've kind of put the library to the side for now and put them towards the bottom of the list, as they're in a lot better shape than other areas of the town. So I wanted to stress that anything that I go over tonight is not in relation to the library at all. Some quick highlights and something that's been glaringly obvious since I've started to take a look at everything is that the technology infrastructure in the town is severely aging. I can go into some specifics during the presentation and give you some examples, but it's not in the best shape, to be frank. There are some major issues that I can touch on that I think have been sort of put to the side over the last however many years that really need to be addressed. And I'm going to touch on that and some other items as we go along. In a big picture sense, I think my main focus here and what I'd like to do is to start modernizing the technology for the town. That is hardware, software, services, every aspect of the town's technology. And once we get to that level where we bring the technology up to where it needs to be, then what you want to do is have a life cycle plan to refresh, replace, upgrade technology. I don't think that's something that has been done here in the past. What happens is when you don't have that life cycle, you end up putting things aside and it ends up costing you more money in the end. And this goes for other parts of infrastructure as well, and not just technology, but it's especially so in technology. Things move so fast. Market conditions, cost, pricing, technology, everything, it just moves so fast that you have to have a plan. Usually in technology, it's a 5 to 7 year life cycle plan. That's usually the industry standard. Whether you're a municipality, a Fortune 500 company, it does not matter. You want to have that 5 to 7 year life cycle plan. That way you're staying consistent as far as budgets are concerned, and you're staying up with new advances in technology, so on and so forth. So first step, though, is getting us to that kind of level we need to be at, which is going to take some doing, unfortunately. I'll touch kind of on just a few points here. I don't want to go too long, but when I started doing the assessment, it's really broken down into kind of two areas. There's the town hall network, which is this building, as well as Public Works, the senior center, the animal control building. All of those buildings are one network, one physical network, you could think of it as. There's approximately about 100 user accounts, 125 mailboxes, and about 80 workstations that support that network. When you look at the actual network infrastructure, unfortunately, what's running it is extremely old. The wiring in this building is decades old. The switches, which is what all of the cables plug into, the majority of them are over 12 years old. Industry standard is usually, if you get 7 to 8 years out of that piece of equipment, you're doing great. So 12 is, and some of them are actually even older than 12. 12 it's not great. 90% of the end user devices, whether it's a laptop, computer, are over 8 years old. So that's the vast majority of employees are using computers that are obviously completely out of warranty, are using software that is not supported anymore and is not getting security updates, and the hardware itself is pretty ancient. If you ask any one of the employees, they'll tell you that's pretty much been the number one concern, is the computers themselves are extremely old. The same goes for the police department. The computers over there are actually slightly older than they are over here, which is even more concerning considering they're used 24/7, especially the computers in the dispatch area. I'll give you an example. Last week, we have 2 computers in the dispatch area that run 24/7. That's where the calls come in, and they use our next-gen CAD system to dispatch calls. One of them died. It's 10 years old, so that makes sense. It's, gone. We've gotten our money's worth out of it, that's for sure. So I had to take my actual workstation that is in my office right here and use that to replace the failed machine, because we don't have any spares, because everything is 8 to 10 years old. So that just gives you an idea of what we're kind of working with and dealing with. It's just, in 2026, it's just not tenable. So, and we've started to take steps to address all this, but I just wanted to sort of point out what I've been able to assess as I've come aboard. The network wiring itself is something that you always want to take a look at as well. You don't want to put new equipment. You don't want to get nice, fancy new equipment that you spend a lot of money on and then connect it to a physical network that has very old wiring. That doesn't make a lot of sense, In certain pockets of the municipality, the wiring is in pretty good shape. The police department, the senior center, the major issue is here at Town Hall, especially the phone wiring. So a few years ago, the town made a transition to voice over IP. Usually when that's done, it's done in a modern way where you connect phones using the same network cables that you connect a computer to. Unfortunately, that wasn't done. So the phones, even though they're modern phones, are actually using the initial phone wiring that was put in when the building was built, which is, I think, from 1973, I think. So it's 50-year-old wiring that's running the phones. That's an issue. Multiple times since I've started, when there's a storm, I think everyone knows we have a lot of power issues in these buildings. Phones have gone down, and the primary reason being they're using 50-year-old wiring. It's really not great. And you have a modern device using 50-year-old wiring. It's not great. And that's probably 85% of the phones are set up that way. The good thing is there's easy solutions to all these things that we can do, but I at least wanted to point out where we are. So probably the number one thing, if you had to say, hey, what's the biggest issue, what's the red alert issue, it's the server infrastructure in the town. It's in really, really poor shape. The servers are the big, huge computers that everybody connects to get all sorts of services. It's what provides the network connectivity, the internet access, the file services for the town. Certain applications for the town run on servers, especially at the police department. The vast majority of those servers are, the hardware is over 8 years old, and the software running them is at least 12 years old, if not older. That is a major issue. Any one of those pieces of equipment could die tomorrow morning, and we'd be in very bad shape, especially at the police department. The server cabinet that runs the equipment here at Town Hall is actually over in the finance department, which is a little odd. I've never seen that before. It doesn't have proper power protection, so we could have one of our power issues that could cause a serious issue in that cabinet over in the finance department, and it would bring the entire town to a screeching halt, including the police department, because there are services that they share over here that are located in the finance department. So it's, you know, I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's definitely not in great shape. I have some details there for you that probably won't mean much to you, but the thing to take away from it is that it is very old, and it is outdated, and it's insecure. And so if there's one thing that we want to stress to work on is replacing that server infrastructure. That's going to be the number one project to work on. Did you go? Oh, sorry. I'm going to touch a little bit on the applications. On the application side, we're in a little better shape considering that a majority of the applications are cloud hosted now, which is great. That takes the responsibility for them, backing them up, making sure that they're working properly, and it puts it on those vendors, and they guarantee that those applications are going to be available. Now, with that said, though, what it makes especially important is the internet access for the town. If the majority of your applications are running in the cloud, you really want to have good, solid, fast, redundant internet access. Unfortunately, that's not the case right now. The internet access for the town is provided by CEN, and it's a 100 megabit per second connection. We need a faster connection, and we do not currently have a redundant connection, so that if that connection goes down, we do not have any type of backup connection. So those are two items that I'd like to rectify as soon as possible. Another area that's in not the greatest of shape is the Microsoft Office software. That's your Microsoft Word, your spreadsheets, your Microsoft Excel. Probably the number one set of applications that everyone in the town utilizes. Unfortunately, we're using Microsoft Office 2016, so we're not using the latest versions of the applications in any way, shape, or form. So that is an area that I want to stress, is to get us on a modern, up-to-date version of Microsoft Office, which has all the latest features, collaboration features, cloud-based features, all of that. That unfortunately is not in place right now. Touching on the police department, most of their applications are not cloud-based for security reasons. So they have a lot of what we call on-prem applications that are housed at the police department. That makes the server infrastructure and making sure that's in good shape even more important, because it's all located physically on site. We have to make sure it's redundant. We have to make sure it's backed up. We have to make sure we can recover anything that goes wrong quickly, and being that it's a police department and a public safety institution. Unfortunately, that is not in the best shape right now. All right, so quickly touch on priorities. I already touched on this a little bit. We need to modernize our entire network infrastructure. Now, that's the wiring, that is the network equipment, that is the servers, That is the computers. That is the internet connection. I know it sounds like a lot, but a lot of these areas have been pretty much ignored for years and years and years. Now, what the plan is going to be is to do these in targeted projects, strategically with the ones that are the highest priority, the most important, and go right down the list. In my opinion, that number one priority is that server infrastructure, and plans are already starting, and I've been putting in place to see what we have to do to get all of that equipment replaced and upgraded. In addition to modernizing the network infrastructure, that's physical stuff. That's kind of hardware. That's stuff we're going to need to purchase, replace, upgrade, fix. I've also, this has been a main part of the assessment I've been doing, is taking a review at all applications, licensing, renewals, all of it. That is the largest chunk of the operating budget for IT, that I'm sure you're all aware of. It's every system that each department uses. It's the licensing that provides our email, our Microsoft Office. There's dozens and dozens. What I've done is try to take a look at each and every one of them to see, first of all, are they licensed properly? Are we using too many licenses in certain areas? And there have been many areas where that was the case. Is this software right for the department? Is it easy to use? Does it do what they want? Are we wasting money for an application or a system that is not even doing what we need it to do? So I've been working with different departments and basically department by department, application by application, looking at every single one of these. The timing has been good because, you know, it's the end of the budget year. All of these renewals basically start coming in May and June. So every one of these vendors will send me a renewal for a lot of money for a year. And so I take a look at that. I talk to them, I talk to the department, and we say, all right, let's take a look at this. Is this something, you know, do we need to make changes? Do we need to make adjustments? Do we need to try to get some better pricing? All of that stuff. So that is a major part of what I've been doing. Considering we have some significant hardware and infrastructure costs that are going to be coming up, this is an area where I think we can make a lot of good changes. So with that said, wanted to go over some of the initiatives along those lines where I think we've made some good progress already. Now, these are not necessarily hardware related. These are more around software and services, but they are also, I think, going to go a long way. The first big one is we're going to be migrating all of our mobile communications to T-Mobile. We currently use AT&T FirstNet for our mobile communications. AT&T FirstNet is a network that was built by AT&T to prioritize governments, first responders, public safety institutions. T-Mobile has something similar called T-Mobile T-Priority. The police department migrated over to T-Mobile a couple of years ago and have been very happy with the performance, the reliability, everything to do with T-Mobile. So we decided to take a look as well. And we have basically signed a deal to migrate all of our connections, all of our lines from AT&T FirstNet over to T-Mobile. It's going to include brand new phones and tablets for every one of our lines at no cost. These are iPhone 17s and the latest standard iPad A16s. We're going to be upgrading our actual connectivity to the latest 5G connectivity provided by T-Mobile. Right now, the AT&T FirstNet network runs on the older LTE connectivity, which is very slow. So we're going to get much better performance and connectivity on all of our mobile devices. We're also going to condense 5 separate AT&T accounts, believe it or not, into a single T-Mobile account that will be between the police department, the town, one bill, one account. There are, for some reason, 5 separate AT&T accounts for the town, and I haven't been able to figure out why. Also, all the mobile devices will be in an MDM solution. That's mobile device management, meaning we can track them A major issue is we had multiple lines and devices that nobody knew where they were, who had them, but we were paying for them every month, that was for sure. So now, every one of these new devices is in a software system that I control, that we have GPS tracking on every device. It is assigned to a specific user and department. We know exactly where it is. It can be turned on or off via T-Mobile at any point. We can, we have some lines that the counselors use during the summer. We can turn them off when the summer is over. We've been paying for those for 9 months for no reason, because they sit in somebody's desk somewhere and don't even get used. So little things like that I think are good instead of AT&T. Another big piece side vendor, IC Express, to provide those services, utilizing software tools that we have purchased for a fraction of. And then another big area where I've tried to make some immediate changes of the technology of the town. One of these aren't done in the best way. So I've taken a look at each and every one of the applications and licenses provided by different vendors. I've been able to 5%. That's a combination of removing partner, which had a much better price. Our email security is not only better, it's enterprise class, top of the line security device compared to what has been in place for the last 10 years here in the town. So that's going to provide much, much better overall security for the town and the police department. I'll just touch on one more thing real quick, because I know this seems like a lot. One major issue that I came across was the auditing of overall user accounts, mailboxes, and licenses. There was no onboarding or offboarding process, so I found dozens of accounts for former employees that were still active, meaning they could have been active with a password of password123. They also had a mailbox that we were paying for every month. They also consumed other licenses that we would pay for every month, and this was dozens, so it was not great. So what happens is, you don't have a proper offboarding process, it falls through the cracks, you don't disable accounts, you don't remove licenses. Well, that's changed. I've implemented an onboarding and an offboarding process, so that will not happen again. So that has been a painstaking process of going through and trying to determine, is this person an employee? Are they actually using services still? Do they need a mailbox? Do they need a license? So that has been going on since the day I started, and I think I've gotten it in a really good place now, so that when we want to upgrade our licensing and do better things, we have an exact idea of the user base for the town, which I don't think was ever done. I found some that were people that weren't working for the town for 8-9 years, and they had active accounts. It was that bad. So, yeah. And in conjunction with that, this really goes to what I want to do to upgrade our Microsoft licensing. We were paying dozens of Microsoft licensing for people that just didn't exist anymore. We can reallocate the funds we were using for those Microsoft licensing and get better Microsoft licensing and products for our users that actually are here. So if we get it from 170 down to 100, well, that's 70 that we're not paying for anymore. We divert some of those funds and get much better modern Microsoft licensing that I was talking about earlier, to get all the better Microsoft products that we need to be using instead of 12-year-old software. One last item is our Microsoft tenant, which is where our email and all of our collaboration stuff is on what's called a commercial tenant. All governments are not supposed to be on a commercial tenant, obviously. They're supposed to be using what's called the Microsoft Government Cloud. So I've initiated the process to get us migrated over to that government cloud. There's many benefits, just a few of which is it keeps all of your data in the US. It has full CGIS and FedRAMP certification. You get enhanced support from Microsoft, and it's cheaper. It's about 20% cheaper than a commercial license. So this is something that should have been done initially. It was just never done. So I've initiated that process as well. So I wanted to touch on a few different areas. I didn't want it to be all bad news saying, how old and aging our infrastructure is, but there's a lot of good stuff too, and then a lot of things that I'm working on that I think will go a long way to kind of getting us where we need to be, getting us organized and where we need to be as far as technology is concerned.
Do any select men have any questions for Matt?
Yes.
Kathy?
Once we get all of our security buttoned up, would we be able to save some money on insurance because all our security is buttoned up?
I believe so. I think there's some areas we can. When it comes to the insurance and your cyber insurance, unfortunately, a lot of it is check boxes. Oh, do you have
Okay, yeah, that's,
endpoint protection? Sure, check it off. Do you have backups? Yeah, that's kind of how it works. The devil is in the details as far as, what you actually use and saving money in those areas, which is what I've been trying to do. According to the auditors and our, in our insurance, we're doing all the right things, and there are a lot of good things we are doing. I think we just should be doing them more efficiently on our end. So I'm not 100% sure if we're gonna see a big difference in that area, but it's certainly possible, because there is improvements that we can make.
and bless you.
I have a question. So for some of the critical IT concerns, the ones that you said like could grind the town to a halt, is there a timeline for addressing those specifically?
So the most critical that I mentioned, the server infrastructure, I've already been working on plans, working on talking with vendors, working on getting some initial pricing. What my plan is to do is to present 3 different options to everyone and say, here's, like a good, better, best, and this is what, here are our options and what I think we should do. It's my number 1 focus, so it's gonna be as quick as I can possibly work on it. That's the timeline, because that's how important it is. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's not in great shape. It's ancient. It could fail tomorrow or Monday, and no one would be able to work. That's how bad it is. And the problem is, it affects PD as well, which runs 24/7. That's really the biggest concern, is a lot of their services are shared with the town, and that's fine. That's normal in a municipality. But it just makes it that much more important that those resources are protected, redundant, and not 12 years old.
Anyone else have any questions?
Thank you for this. Will you be bringing us numbers as far as like what you project this is going to cost and where our savings are? Can we get a look at all of that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah. Like I mentioned, I want to sort of attack this project-based, right? So the server infrastructure replacement is going to be a project, and then we will define that, and we will budget it and come up with the costs. And then all the other items, I'll give you a full accounting on all those cost savings. And what I'm trying to do is utilize a lot of those efficiencies and cost savings so that, when we have to make these infrastructure purchases, we are at least getting some relief on the other side.
Thank you.
So I'm trying to balance it as much as possible. But yeah, the server infrastructure project will be soon, and I'll provide any and all information.
Perfect.
Anyone else, any questions? Matt, one thing I do have a question with is you've been in contact with Dan. How are we financially, budget-wise, for some of this getting implemented right away?
I think we're actually in some pretty good shape. I think we have the benefit that a lot of this stuff hasn't been done for a long time. So not that we haven't spent money in IT, but I think it's been spent in the wrong areas. I think allowing the server infrastructure and the computers to age this long without spending money on it was a major issue. I think a lot of that money might have been spent towards some of the security products and some other things, which is great if it's done properly, which I don't think it was. But with that said, financially, we are, I think, in a pretty good spot to do what we need to do. I think we'll be able to implement these infrastructure improvements without it being an enormous project, an enormous expense. With that said, as everyone knows, and we've discussed this recently, this is not the greatest time with world events to be trying to do something like this. Every single technology vendor that I've spoken with has reported to me that big price increases are coming throughout this calendar year. You know, shocker to everybody, right? But it's across the board. They are all saying the same thing. They're expecting 35, maybe 40% price increases. So the sooner the better. We've already started. We made a purchase of new computers from Dell. So we've already started on the endpoint side, but the sooner the better on the server side, because those components are more expensive than regular computers. So like I said, it's my #1 priority, and it's what I'm going to be working on the most to get all this ready as soon as possible.
And is your focus going to be on the police station, server-wise?
And I'm going to go into this more in depth in the future, but what the vision I see is a shared infrastructure between the police department and the town hall that's fully redundant. So that would leverage both areas. So if you have one infrastructure that's shared between the two sites, while there might be slightly more initial costs, you're gonna save long term. If we have to, let's upgrade the server infrastructure at PD and not worry about here, well, then in 2 or 3 years, we worry about doing this side, and it's gonna be only that much more. So I want to try to leverage that efficiency. I've had a lot of luck in my previous employment doing that at other municipalities, where you leverage a shared infrastructure for the entire municipality. And it has to be able to support the entire municipality, but you make it so in that it's redundant, and you gain a lot of efficiency from that and a lot of cost savings in the end. So that's my initial thought. Of course, it's gonna, there are budgets involved and these price increases and whatnot, but that's at least my initial path. And we can go into the details on that and how that'll work as we go along, for sure.
Well, thank you. Very informative. Appreciate it. Happy to have you on board.
Great. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.
Next up is announcements and correspondence. Those are in your packet. Your reports are in your packet. Consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Motion carries. The minutes. I get a motion to approve the June 2026 public hearing minutes and the June 4th regular meeting minutes.
So moved. Oh,
Second?
second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? New business, flock funds allocation. We had the presentation last meeting on flock. Does anybody have any discussion on this? Any questions? I know Chief Grillo is in the audience. Asked him to come if we did have any questions. Jason, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Chief, just one question. I don't know if you want to come up or do it from there. I'll preface that by saying I think I'm for this in general terms, so I'll be voting for it tonight. I still have, as I noted last time, some privacy concerns. So my own question was going to be, and I think they answered it last week, but I just kind of want to confirm my memory. For the license plate readers specifically, their sole function is doing just that. There's no other technology as far as facial recognition or cell phone scrubbing or anything like that. It's scanning a plate and giving you the information that comes from the DMV.
It's actually, it's mostly correct. It's actually a little bit less than that. So it does not pull DMV data. So the flock camera just gives us publicly available data already. It'll take a picture of the license plate, which is owned by the state of Connecticut, and it'll take a picture and the demographics of the car. So it's going to use the computer technology to determine what type of car it is, any defects in the car, dent, scratch, bumper stickers, make, model, color. That's all Flock's going to capture for us. The data that we use if we need to identify that car comes from CJIS data, Criminal Justice Information Systems, that we already have access to through DMV, Collect, NCIC. So it doesn't actually store any names, faces, addresses, phone numbers, anything, any data related to that vehicle is not associated with the Flock system. It's encrypted from rest to transportation, so as the data is on that camera momentarily before it's sent to the cloud, it's encrypted there, and then it's encrypted in transit, and then it's encrypted while it's stored on the cloud. But that's a great question, because I think that's something that people really need to understand and be clear on, that it's not retaining data specific to people.
And to follow up on that, if I recall what they said last time, Connecticut state law requires the information to be purged, 21 days, unless there's an active investigation on that.
That's correct, and they use a term, and I think they call it time to live, and that's the time to live, and it's to the second. So at that second, the data is automatically deleted. Nobody has to go in there and manually delete it. And we actually had an offline discussion afterwards. Because it's stored in a CJIS cloud and it requires CJIS compliance, it cannot be retrieved. So we can't go to Flock and say, I know the data was erased 22 days ago, but we really need it. It does not exist for us. It does not exist for them.
Okay, and the last question, and I believe this was, but I want to reiterate it, the logs of who is accessing the information is detailed and transparent, and that does live for a long time.
Forever,
Yes.
yes. So the audit logs will live forever. They have what's called a transparency portal, which I think is great. So if anybody has any questions, they can go to the transparency portal. Newtown has theirs up on the Flock site. You can see the information about the cameras. You can see information about the policy as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. First Selectman.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I really appreciate the presentation that was before us a couple weeks ago. Since then, I've done a bit of reading, like just even experiences out on Reddit. What are other Americans experiencing? What are their concerns? The ACLU has taken a pretty serious opposing position to the Flock cameras, and one of the major concerns that they've cited is the use of AI, that Flock is actually using AI to say this person's habits have changed and therefore it's potential that they've committed a crime. I'm very concerned about the use of AI by Flock and how that would affect our residents. And do you have any thoughts on that, and have you heard anything about that?
Now, that's something I'd have to follow up with Flock on the AI technology, on how the AI actually works in that respect to it. There's, in today's day and age, there's AI in everything, right? And I know they do use the AI for the vehicle recognition. So if we're looking for a vehicle that was just involved in an evading accident, and we know it's a red Honda and it should have right front end damage, that AI technology is going to look for red Hondas with right front end damage. So, but the specifics of how it's tracking patterns, I'm not aware of that, but not to say it doesn't exist, but I can follow up on that.
Yeah, that's, I think, where it really doesn't sit well with me, is that people are citing that it does go deeper than maybe what some of the departments signed up for, is that what's happening on the back end may be a little bit more complicated than what's initially understood to be the case. The other question that I have, which I raised a few weeks ago, is has there been any communication with the property owners or the homeowners who the cameras would be facing towards, where they're regularly, their interactions day to day, walking to the mailbox, all of those different things. I mean, at the end of the day, it is capturing them, and how do those residents feel about it?
So if we were to deploy the project, we would go out and we'd survey the areas and find the best locations for it. And then at that time, we would determine if we do have to make any notifications or replace, or reposition the cameras in any manner. These cameras are virtually almost everywhere now. Like they had talked about last week, there's over 600 cameras in Connecticut. Every Home Depot and Lowe's has these cameras. They're virtually everywhere. We had an opportunity last week. We had a missing person, and through investigative efforts, we learned they may have traveled to a certain town. And we were able to call that town and said, can you please check your flock system to see if that car came through your town? And it did, which helped us with our missing person investigation in that respect. But they are everywhere already, and I think people are now starting to understand that. At first, there was a big worry about, right, the privacy, and I think now that it's gotten more traction with the news and with the state of Connecticut coming out and passing a law to restrict it, I think that's helped a lot for people to understand, the privacy portion of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still have privacy concerns. It's a very Orwellian world that we're moving towards where you're on camera all the time. And I just want to make sure that residents of our town don't feel like there's a camera in their front yard and that's not what they signed up for when they moved here. And I think that that's a very fair concern, is that, feels like they're being watched. And I appreciate that officers, I think every one of our officers that's here today is absolutely fantastic, and I like that the log exists. But the reality is we don't know who will potentially work for us in the future. We don't know if we will only find out after the fact if it's ever been misused, if somebody's been followed for some reason that wasn't appropriate. And those are the things that I really worry about is, sometimes when somebody's been harmed, it's hard to unharm them, right, after the fact. So the more that I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of the many American citizens out there that are not comfortable having the cameras on them, I worry more about the residents of our town that would be immediately impacted. I think for the average person that doesn't live near one, you pass it here or there. But for the people that live immediately around it, I mean, the AI is apparently understanding like what their daily habits are like and when their daily habits change, and that's a bit concerning.
Yeah, again, I haven't heard that, not to say it's not true. There are a lot of misconceptions out there, which I am learning. But those privacy concerns already exist really within the police department, right? Because we have access to criminal justice information. We have access to DMV information. So if it is misused by an officer, that potential for misuse is already available. However, there's things in place. It's a felony to misuse that criminal justice information. And officers can and have been arrested, not Southbury, but other agencies for misusing that system. So there are laws in place to protect the citizens. But again, yes, it's another area that we have to have policy and monitor and audit.
One quick question. Where, if you already have a plan, where in town have you sort of earmarked for placement?
That's a great.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out if there are, like what Selectmen, what Holly just said, whether or not there is, would be placement facing somebody's residence, or if there's a plan in place to avoid residential areas.
Right, so what we would want to do, we want to do the egresses or exits for the town. Exit 16, 14, 15, and then somewhere in the area of 188 and somewhere in the area of 67. Would really give us a really good perimeter to see if there's vehicles coming in and out of town. You'll see a lot of other towns right when you come off the exit ramps or right when you get on the exit. A lot of times when you come off the exit ramps, you'll see the cameras there.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I just had a question based on, not that I'm micromanaging at all, but how many other companies did you look at? Or is this the only company that offers this kind of program?
There are other companies that offer similar technology. Flock is the really the gold standard of this technology. There's some license plate readers that will read the license plate, but not really give you anything other than the license plate, which is a lower level of the technology. There's some companies that have similar technology, but they don't have the wingspan or the levels that the flock cameras have. You know, the software technology is not there. So there are other options, but they really don't compare to what, you know, flock's able to offer.
How many did you guys go through, or how many did you go through before you came to Flocks?
There's 3 in total that I looked at.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's reasonable.
Kelly?
Yeah, so this may have been covered in the last presentation, but as far as, we know that the data is retained and then has to be purged at a certain time period. But while we have the data, can you speak a little bit more to what is done to protect it? I also went down a little bit of a rabbit hole post-presentation and just seeing like instances where, you know, worst case scenario, somebody's hacking and then using that data, say it's an ex, to track their ex-wife or whatever. And so what kind of protections are in place to prevent data breaches? And then if there is a breach, what is the notification process, or what is the parameters for dealing with a breach?
An internal breach or an external breach, or both? Both, okay. I mean, to speak from, so we already have a policy in place for CGIS data, whether it's an internal or external. And that's required, we're audited, we have to stay in compliance with that, we have policy on that. If there were a internal breach, we would handle it the same way as if there currently was with our criminal justice system. So we have access to DMV files. If somebody misused those DMV files, there's a process that we would take to rectify that, right? Obviously, it's the first finding out of it, the mitigation of, okay, can we stop it right now? And then the investigation part of it, and then, you know, whatever follows from there. So there's already things in place for the CGIS data that we currently have access to. So it's a mirror of that. The users would need a legitimate law enforcement purpose to use it. So someone just can't log in and just start searching just to try and do searches. There has to be a legitimate law enforcement purpose for it. And again, it's a tool that gives us access to investigative leads that, you know, we may not have.
You all set, Kelly? You all set? Anybody else have any questions for Chief Grillo? Holly, go ahead.
Sorry, the allocation of funds that are being asked for now, exactly how would that be used?
Flock's offering a 2-year contract. The first year is $21,250, and the second year is $18,000.
So just to clarify, what we're looking to do tonight is actually to move forward with the program completely.
I'm sorry.
The expectation is that this vote is to go ahead and move forward with implementing these cameras.
The vote would be to make the recommendation to the Board of Finance.
Understood. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I want to make sure, I still have those outstanding questions, and I want to make sure it's still going to come back to us again. I particularly worry about the residents where the cameras are, because I think these are largely in very commercial areas, but there's a couple spots, I think, that I just feel like we have some stones unturned and some conversations to be had in those areas. I realize it's going to go to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance is looking at the numbers to say, hey, can we afford it? I feel like more of our responsibility is it the right thing for the people of our town? And I think there's a lot of very good things that these cameras do, but I also think that they come with a good bit of other concerns that are also valid, and I think still have some exploration to be done.
Okay, well, we are going to call the vote on that tonight for the Board of Selectmen to make the recommendation to the Board of Finance. So if you have questions, time would be now to pose them.
Well, for me, I'd like to know that we've had conversations with the residents in those areas. How does this camera affect them? Like this, I think that's very valid. Like not everybody even knows to tune into these meetings, and people don't want to be surprised. And I'd like to know that we're talking to the people of our town to say, hey, we're talking about putting this camera up. It's on your property line or in the egress of your property, and I'd like to know that we've kind of explored that.
I think the 5 cameras that are going to be deployed are basically aimed toward any state road, not particularly on a private residence.
Yeah, they would be directed towards the road. I don't know the field of view to say 100% that no, 100%, you know, but that's a good question for Flock to make sure that if we did deploy these cameras, that we don't do that we don't put it, you know. We would also, if it did capture that data, we have to be searching for that to find it. We'd have to have a purpose to search for it. So we couldn't just search how many times somebody left their driveway based on, you know, knowing their license plate. We would have to have a legitimate law enforcement purpose, doing an investigation to search their data.
So I think there's really like the 3 points. So there's Roxbury Road. I think there's probably some residential areas up there. Strongtown Road, there could be a residence there. I don't know. I feel like I'm just not there yet, that we've fully communicated this to the folks that would be there. I mean, obviously, Main Street, I don't think we have any major concerns, but, you know, the AI piece of it, and I think that's where the ACLU took a pretty big stance, is that the AI has been and is being used outside of, it's actually like predicting that, hey, we think a crime might have been committed because there's a pattern that's off. That piece really doesn't sit well with me. And I would have liked to hear from maybe Flock saying that is like unfounded or whatever, but when it's coming from a fairly active source in civil liberties, I think there's a conversation to be had.
Yeah, and I don't, again, I'm not say it doesn't, but I just don't know how that would translate to the user end, where the user has to search. I don't know how it would kind of compute that if a user's searching for something, I don't know how it would automatically, because we need a purpose to search it, so I can't see the software just telling the user something.
Yeah, understood. And I think what the point was that what the police department's understanding of this versus what has happened in some situations may be different. But again, I'd love to hear if that, maybe they're wrong, maybe the ACLU is wrong, I don't know. But it seems to come from a fairly credible source.
Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I would imagine, and again, I don't know much about the software, but I would imagine that the software would have to have the ability to kind of toggle on and toggle off certain features based on the governance of that particular state. Like Colorado is different than Connecticut and California. And a follow-up question was, if there is like an AI predictive feature, can the software just toggle off that option? And it would be nice to get clarification on that.
Yeah, okay.
And I think, just following up on what you just said, Kelly, I think that's one of the dispositive factors, at least for me, to be sort of inclined to go with this, even though I do have questions, is that the overarching, I think, sort of mitigating factor is that Connecticut has passed laws that some states have not. So although there's broad information out there on the internet, and I'm certainly concerned about privacy issues as well, and many of the issues that have been raised, that at least in this state, we know there are layers of, statutory restrictions that prohibit the sort of arbitrary use of this technology, as opposed to the states where there haven't been any legislative action on this, the use and deployment of the technology. And so I feel like some of the information that is out there are legitimate concerns, and they do occur largely in, places where there isn't a statutory framework. But I don't doubt that even, notwithstanding that, the concerns are still, valid. I mean, one of the things I remember is several years ago in Southbridge, there was a rash of bank robberies. And, I don't know if you remember that, but we were like bank robbery after bank robbery. I'm like, oh my God, where we are. But everybody was getting off on that, right up that exit off CVS, right? I don't remember what the name of that is called. So that was the one thing I thought about is, if it's really pointed towards these exits, is that a benefit to us? And is there, a definite sort of plan to avoid residential, monitoring, so to speak, because I think that is a legitimate concern.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And targeting residential is not the scope of the project either. And just a little bit of history too, we actually have an LPR already. We've had an LPR in the PD for 11 years. It's a mobile LPR, it's fixed to a car. 5 or 6 years ago, we upgraded it to a new one. So we've used LPR technology in the town for a long time, and we currently do. The only difference is instead of the car driving around with the LPR, it's a fixed LPR at targeted points, within the town.
Chris, if we do decide to go with this, is there an out in their contract at all? Is there like a 90-day or 30-day termination clause?
I do have the contract, I read it, and I did not see that in there, but not to say that it doesn't exist. At the end of the contract, they are responsible for everything, so if we opt out of the contract at the end of the 2 years, they'll come and they'll remove all the equipment, the poles, everything that goes along with that at no charge. So we're not stuck with, if we do decide to opt out of the program, we're not stuck with this equipment just sitting around town or responsible for removing it. They cover the cost of all the installation and the deployment, and the contract actually starts the day that we would go live. So they don't charge us for why they're installing it or anything. The day that we go live to the system is day one of the contract.
Sure, go ahead, Jason.
Just so I understand, we're going to vote tonight to make a recommendation to the Board of Finance to find whatever that is, 42 grand to fund this. And then they'll say yes or no. Then we have to approve the contract, right? Because at least I haven't seen a contract. The chief has.
Yes.
All right, so it's coming back to this board one way or another. So based on some of the questions you've heard tonight, maybe could you possibly do some legwork with Flock to have answers ready?
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. First Selectman.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the Flock funding allocation?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Motion carries. Next up, unfinished business, the fire hydrant ordinance, discussion and possible action. Can I get a motion to approve that ordinance?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
And is there a discussion? Hearing none.
I just, I want to acknowledge the concerns of the residents that feel like, when I spoke about this a couple weeks ago, what I was worried about was the person who can't feasibly get there and handle the snow. And I'm still worried about particularly seniors that maybe can't handle this. And I realize we're going to set the fines. If somebody's going to be fined into perpetuity, I don't know, I feel like I understand the need for it. What I would like to know maybe still is, what would it cost us for us to have a contingency plan for somebody who can't, if they cannot do this, what's the, we could have a 80-year-old resident that cannot get out there and physically cannot handle that snow, and maybe the person they hired, I'll tell you a million times, I've hired somebody to plow my driveway, and they're coming 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, and it's just not done. Sometimes things don't happen timely, and I just don't want to, I don't want to put something on somebody that is a genuine hardship. And I hear the gentleman's concerns that were spoken earlier, and I'd like to know what our contingency plan for somebody who can't do it.
So basically, I think this is really an update to the ordinance for the sidewalk ordinance that we have for clearing snow off of sidewalks. We found over this past year the amount of snow that we had and noticed that nobody was really doing the fire hydrants. I understand your concerns and everything. I know Public Works will definitely reach out to anybody that was having trouble like that, and I would certainly think that, given variables with people that are bordering these hydrants and everything, that the town would actually reach out and help out anybody with those
Good.
type of concerns.
I do
Go
have a,
ahead.
yeah, I do have a question too. I mean, would it be possible to limit this to the commercial, parties and exempt residents, especially given the concern about, for example, people who may be snowbirds and not around when,
Most towns don't do that, but Derek, I don't know if you can answer that question for us?
I don't know if that helps you if their place burns down. I think the goal of this is a public safety option. I understand the concern, but I think, we're opening ourselves up if, and I shouldn't speak before Derek, but if we're carving out some people who don't have to do it, and then God forbid there's a fire and they can't get access to it, we told the guy, don't worry about shoveling it out.
right, no, I wasn't thinking just carve it out. I was thinking that, especially in light of the public comments that we had earlier, one of the gentlemen made a point, which I hadn't thought about, and he said, well, this is town property, and couldn't the town handle that? So I was thinking, well, maybe if we had a hybrid approach where we put the onus on the commercial, parties, and then for residents, there's a carve-out that we would identify those 100, I think we identified that there were 100 residents, and maybe that would be, that would limit the town's responsibility, because the commercial entities would be responsible and subject to these fines. I mean, I'm not saying it's practical, and I'm not saying it's even pragmatic. I'm just saying that it's just, the public comments, at least on this point, as to making this municipal responsibility being delegated to residents, it was a concern to me. So I just wanted to understand.
But, I think that most of the community associations or condos in Heritage Village, it's their responsibility to clear those hydrants there, and I think it's the same for any commercial property that has any of those.
Right, my understanding, first of all, and is that outside of, Heritage Village, et cetera, there were also other individual, unless I misunderstood the information, I thought outside of those communities, I would consider those communities responsible too. I wasn't thinking of exempting them at all. I was just thinking about the 80-year-old person who, doesn't have the individuals, and I wondered whether there was some carve-out there that would be a possibility. So maybe I misconstrued the information, so you could clarify.
So I'm going to do my best to address as many. I'm going to do my best to address as many of those questions as possible. If I miss one, please let me know. So as far as the concerns, if there is a hardship, I've already begun to identify all the properties that are going to be affected by this.
Thank you.
And my intention is to send out a letter with an opportunity to express those hardships. And I plan to seek assistance from social services and any other agencies to make sure that we can make up for that if there is a true hardship. My goal is not to find someone into a position where it's not sustainable. My goal is life safety. I want to make sure that we have sustainable water supply for when we have an incident.
Talk into the mic.
It's on, sorry, I can move up. So the 355 hydrants we have in town, 280 of those are on commercial property, whether that's Heritage Village, Traditions, the commercial properties on Main Street, leaving 75 hydrants along roadways that are pressurized hydrants that are most likely going to be single-family residential properties. There are some that are adjacent to town properties. There are some adjacent to nonprofit properties. So there's a few nuances to that, and I've begun to go through that list to make those notifications. The biggest impact are going to be the 50 underground storage tanks we have. Those are all on residential properties, mostly cul-de-sacs. Those are there because there's an ordinance that requires you, when you have a subdivision of 10 houses or more, to install at least one underground tank. So the majority of those underground tanks are at the end of a cul-de-sac. And it's going to be on residential property. I also would like to, instead of trying to set the fees tonight, if it's okay with you guys, to set up a workshop to look at what the true cost would be to have snow removal done in the event someone does it. I'm not prepared to have that conversation tonight because I haven't reached out to contractors. We haven't looked at alternative means. I think that would be a meaningful conversation. Luckily, we have plenty of time before we see snow again, hopefully. But I agree, there are concerns, and the last thing I want to do is enforce a hardship on someone.
I appreciate that, and that's really what, one, you're gonna have to be our fire marshal for a very long time, so you make sure that that continues to happen for folks. I
best.
feel a lot better knowing that you are gonna be doing this outreach, and the other thing, I want to acknowledge that I do think that this is a public safety necessity, that they have to be cleared. It's just a matter of who does the responsibility fall under. So at the end of the day, I definitely support what you're trying to do here, and I think it's important. I just want to make sure we do it in a way that respects the residents of town. The other question that I have is, so we're going to send out the letters now with the hardships. In the future, when a home is purchased in Southbury and a hydrant is on their property, can they be notified that that will be their responsibility going forward? Like, is there a way that we can capture that so that when they go to purchase this home, they know that that is going to be their obligation?
I mean, I can answer that.
Thank you.
We can put it on the land record.
That would be, if that's an option, that's great.
Yeah, we absolutely could. I mean, if that is really a resolution, we can always put it on the land record. And so what that would mean is that the person intending to purchase the property would have public and open notification
Good.
of, it's sort of like an easement.
Yep.
You know, it's not an easement, but I'm just using it as, in context, that it would be then a municipal notice to any future homeowner, so they understand the responsibility.
Perfect.
And I believe that those landowners already have information on that. So the underground tanks are on either easements or property that's been deeded to the town, so that should be rectified in their purchasing process as well. I could also work with the town assessor to look at what that would look like as well.
Great.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the fire hydrant ordinance? Anyone? Second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Motion carries. Next up is the fire hydrant ordinance fee schedule.
Thank you, everyone. I do appreciate the comments from the public and from you guys as well.
Southbury Board of Selectmen resolved that the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby approve the following removal of snow and ice from around the fire hydrant fines and penalties. Every owner who violates this ordinance will also be subject to a fine issued by the first selectman or his designated agent in the amount of $75 for each day that a violation exists. The Board of Selectmen may from time to time change the amount of the daily fines without having to amend the ordinance. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. First Selectman,
Sure, go ahead.
did we want to entertain Derek's idea of postponing this until his workshop, or did you feel that putting this in place, although I don't think we'll have a whole lot of snow, as he mentioned before, that wherever that workshop is, to get something codified?
Well, it said we can change it any time.
Yeah, I think we
No, certainly.
could come up with, whatever fine that we wanted to do anyway, according to the ordinance itself. I would go ahead and do this now, and if we wanted to amend it later on, we could amend it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
I'd like to do this after we heard from it, so I'm going to be a no vote only because I'd like to have the conversation first, but that's my only opposition.
Anybody abstaining? Motion carries. Next up is the Economic Development Consulting Service Contract. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in...
Ms. First-
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Go
all
ahead,
right.
Jason.
That's all right. Thank you, Ms. First Selectman. I know I'm a bit of a broken record on this, so I'll keep my comments brief. I don't understand, and never have before this administration, I don't understand what the Board of Finance wants us to do with this. I don't think it's a job that can be done in 10 hours a week by anyone. So this isn't having to do with the applicant. One of the pushbacks I heard every time I have mentioned that was the opportunity for this position to act in a manner of a grant writer and work on behalf of the town to see what is out there, apply for grants, bring in money towards economic development. And that was kind of, you know, would be maybe a bulk of the job in the 10 hours a week. In reading through the contract, this person won't do that. They'll do grant identification, research, support, and coordination, but the contract calls out that the completion and submission of grant applications, grant administration, and compliance would require a separate agreement. So if we want someone to actually write and apply for grants, it wouldn't be handled under this contract. So it leaves me scratching my head if we thought that this position would really, you know, potentially bolster economic development by writing and being awarded grants. This isn't doing that. So I'm going to be a no on this. I would, again, rather see us dust off that economic develop task force thing and really come up with a plan for a full-time economic development director. I think this dipping a toe in the water doesn't serve economic development, doesn't serve the town, and doesn't serve the taxpayers. So I'll be a no today.
Anyone else, comments? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the Economic Development Consulting Services contract signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries. Next up is the Larkin Bridle Trail update. We are looking into an encroachment permit with the state of Connecticut and possibly some engineered plans. That's in the works right now. Short property, 415 Roxbury Road. RUPAC approved it. It went to planning. Planning did a 824 referral. We do have that. That'll probably be before the public in a public hearing and a town meeting in the next Board of Selectmen meeting, which is July 16th. Does anybody have any discussion on either of those? If not, I'll move right along to the first Selectmen report. This week, I would like to recognize several people and projects that reflect the service, care, and community spirit that makes Southbury strong. Congratulations to Park and Rec's Recreation Coordinator Sarah Panaccio from graduating from the Litchfield Fire School's Fire One course and becoming a certified firefighter. Fellow Southbury Fire Department volunteer Jaden Carter also completed his certification by graduating from Mission CIT's Combined Fire 1 and Fire 2 class. Thank you to both for their time and commitment they have invested to help protect our community. On June 15th was World Elder Abuse Day. It is a global initiative to raise awareness for elder abuse and neglect. Southbury Police Chief Chris Grillo spoke at Quinnipiac University on protecting older adults. The program brought together approximately 150 people, including Southbury's Senior Services Director, Andrea Corcoran, Social Services Director, Mary Silverman. The discussion included elder justice, best practices, dignity, and safety for older adults. And thank you to Chief Grillo for what he spoke on there. Southbury Town Clerk offers a free land records fraud alert service. Property owners can sign up to receive an email alert when a document such as a deed or mortgage is recorded under their name in the Southbury Town Clerk's office. More information is available on the town website, and residents may visit the town clerk's office for assistance in signing up. Ballantine Pavilion bathrooms have been fully repaired and improved. In addition to repairing the vandalism, the work addressed broken molding, cracked floors, and damaged and non-functioning fixtures. Public Works also completed the seasonal cleanup needed after the winter, so the bathrooms are ready for campers and people using the pavilion this year. A new refrigerator and freezer for the pavilion, scheduled for replacement in 2024-25, has been ordered and will be replaced shortly. In the next few weeks, residents will begin to see landscaping upgrades to both Ballantine and Settlers Parks. Prestige Landscaping was awarded the contract, and they will begin installing plantings at Settlers near the parking area of the Riverwalk, the entrance to the north parking lot on both the right and left side flower beds, and also around the gazebo where the summer concerts will take place. Ballantine will see upgrade plantings to the welcome sign and flower bed at the playground parking area and new landscape installations near the town pool. These improvements are part of a commitment to attract welcoming public spaces and address long-needed maintenance of our parks. Ballantine Pool opens on June 21st. That's Father's Day, Sunday. Please visit the town website for hours and pool membership information. Opening the pool this year required significant work. The pool needed to be drained, cleaned, and refilled after discovering large amounts of leaves left in the pool over the winter, causing staining due to the pool cover not being installed timely. Additionally, the pool house had a number of burst water pipes that needed to be repaired, and also the floor needed painting. The exterior is currently being painted. Thank you to Parks Director Megan Lennon, our new Aquatics Director Tristan Nee, all the lifeguards working this year, our Public Works Outside Properties for their help in getting the pool ready and open on time. All went over and above the call of duty to ensure the pool was able to open to our residents on time. If you have a chance, please stop by to see the improvements. Lucky Dog Concessions will be serving patrons throughout the summer on site. Our summer concerts begin July 6th. Park and Rec's Monday evening concert series at the Settlers Park Gazebo begins March 6th with Mark Berger and The Ride. The concert is free. It runs from 6 to 8 p.m., and food will be available also from Lucky Dog World's Famous Hot Dogs. Future concerts include One Track Mind, which is a local band, Sun Kings, Beatles tribute band, and My Brother's Band. Residents can enjoy the music and enjoy the soon-to-be renovated gardens by the pavilion, or the gazebo. Southbreeze Farmers Market opened today, June 18th, and it runs Thursday from 3 to 6 at the Town Hall Green through November 19th. I look forward to seeing the local goods available each week. Rochambeau Traverse Hike with Southbury historian John Dwyer and Southbury Land Trust Chair Joe Ruggiero was well organized and an enjoyable event highlighting Southbury's natural spaces, parks, and Main Street South. I especially enjoyed unveiling of the Victory Town sign sponsored by the Southbury Historical Society. That's in front of Veterans Memorial Green. Listen to our Veterans Voices. I also enjoyed listening to our Veterans Voices fundraiser on June 5th at the George Newtown VFW Post 1607. That was hosted by Lisa Antrim. It was good to see so many people come out to support our local veterans and enjoy our VFW amenities. Tax bills will be mailed at the end of the month. Residents can find information about taxes and payment options on our town website. This year, residents will also have the options to pay their taxes at Ion Bank in Southbury. Southbury is also hiring several positions, including senior center mini bus drivers, grounds maintainer, human resources generalist, emergency dispatch, fiscal assistant, public works director, building and grounds director. For more information, please visit our town website. Southbury also has several upcoming America 250 events that I'm especially excited about and thankful to the Southbury America 250 Committee for planning, including a talk by John Dwyer, town historian, on discovering the Rochambeau route from Breakneck to Newtown, 1781 to 1782. That'll be on June 21st from 2 to 3:30 at the Southbury Public Library. The new Southbury Historical Society America 250 exhibit at the Old Town Hall Museum, focused on Southbury's role in the Revolutionary War, opens on June 21st. The Revolutionary War Monument dedication and America 250 bell ringing is on July 4th at Veterans Memorial Green, where a new monument hosting Southburyans who served in the Revolutionary War will be unveiled. You can bring bells to ring and the old tradition to celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The community reading of the Declaration of Independence on July 8th at Veterans Memorial Hall is a nationwide simultaneous event that recreates the first reading of the Declaration of Independence to the people on July 8th, 1776. Last but not least, many Region 15 students are being celebrated as they moved on to the next phase in their life. I want to congratulate all those students who have completed school year, and I look forward to joining Pomperaug High School seniors on Saturday, June 20th, as they are recognized as graduates. I wish them continued success as they take on their next challenges. Reports from liaisons. Selectwoman Wendy Bernard.
Thank you, First Selectman. Notice IPOC's there twice. I'm not sure if, I promise I will attend the next, yes. Okay, so IPOC, sorry, has not met, so I have no report there. But on Monday, June 15th, I did attend my first RUPAC meeting. It was really engaging, learned a lot, getting my bearings, and understanding the town's objective to achieve 25% open space. The meetings will be held going forward quarterly. For senior services, that was yesterday, June 16th. We had a guest speaker, probate judge David Labriola, very informative, certainly no legal advice. He made sure that disclaimer was issued, but he spoke about the work of the probate court, which I can attest from my, private work is just highly efficient. But he also made observations which suggest that everyone should ensure and do their best to get their affairs in order. And also, there were discussions about the revision of the bylaws, and the commission will be working on those revisions, and then we'll be presenting them to this board for review and approval. The expectation is that will happen sometime around the fall, meaning September. And then we're having ongoing discussions about the senior pro bono legal clinic. Again, the expectation is fall 2026, and hopefully a tentative meeting scheduled for planning purposes on July 15th. have not had a meeting yet, but there is one coming up on June 24th for the tax abatement working group, and I plan to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectwoman Kathy Farley.
All right, so the Energy Task Force, our last meeting, we pretty much discussed the Verogy contract, much like the same discussion we had about an hour ago. The next steps for them is going to be to set up a meeting with the fire marshal and the building inspector. Verogy, sorry, hopes to have everything into deep by the end of July so they can start construction and Q2 of 2007 and hopefully complete the construction of Q3 in 2007, but that all depends on the contract, which the lawyer's now going to be talking to them about. So that's that. The library, they're having their summer vacation on July and August, so there will be no meetings. So this last meeting was a lot of getting things approved. They're going to be ordering new furniture for the children's section upstairs. They're ordering shelves for the basement. They did some approvals for a bunch of different digital programs. And something I did not know, but you can read the New York Times for free. They have a whole digital system where you just go in with your library card and first come, first serve, and you can read it. I did not know that. So that's that. Strategic Plan Force. There was a bunch of goals, a list of like 150 goals, and we ran two different AI engines, ChatGPT and Claude, to see how they meshed all the goals together. We're going to still be reviewing them, and yeah, so that's where, now that we went through all of the ChatGPT and the Claude stuff, now we're going to be reviewing them and doing some wordsmithing so that we can hopefully compile these goals to just the, how many are we supposed to get, Jason? 3 to 4. So out of the 150, we got it down to 149. And we're still working on finding out the top 4 or 8. And then the Energy Task Force. We just had a special meeting where we sent out a questionnaire to the potential partners for this, for using this grant. We haven't heard anything back yet from them, so we went through, and as a committee, our task force, we decided what our top priorities would be so that we can analyze the responses we get. And that's it.
Selectwoman Kelly Keenan.
Okay, so Parks and Rec met, as you mentioned, they passed their pool inspection on Wednesday and are set to open on schedule this Sunday, June 21st. They are, the new aquatic supervisor and Commissioner Rosen have been working on putting together possibly a sensory hour evening on July 17th, which will be a nice new offering, so keep your eyes peeled for details on that. There are, Director Lennon wanted me to highlight, there are still quite a few camp openings for teenscape, backyard sports, game coding, cooking, couple others. I can't read my handwriting. So go to the website for additional information on deadlines and registration information. As you mentioned, they're kicking off their summer concert series on Monday, July 6th, which carries through until July 27th. There's also talk of trying to extend that. The commissioners are discussing possibly extending that with open mic acoustic sessions
Be
at
nice.
the gazebo.
Yeah.
Which could be interesting. The playground committee is still working on pulling together RFQs for those improvements, and that's it for Parks and Rec. The EDC met last night, and the lighting of the town signs that they've been working on, that's set to move forward hopefully in the next week or two. They did have quite a few updates from the Streetscape Commission regarding the holiday lighting, which they've been working on together. So there's a couple of RFPs out for electrifying the poles and also the decorative garland for this holiday lighting. It still seems like it's on schedule to take place this season. They've looked at some samples still and are going to be making a final decision in the coming weeks. I believe there's a special meeting set for July 1st, or they're working on setting a special meeting with planning just to get approval to move forward. One incentive is, no, that's it. And then the swag bags that they've been working on, these business outreach bags, finally came in. I think they dropped off a couple in the office.
got one,
It
yes.
has the America 250 logo on one side and the Economic Development Commission information on the other. I should have brought one with me, but I forgot. So they're working on a strategy to distribute those in the community, possibly distributing at Southbury Celebration and other opportunities. And that's about it for EDC, and LEPC has not met yet.
Thank you. Selectman Holly Sullivan.
Region 15 had their last board meeting for the summer, or before we go into summer, on June 8th. Again, like the myriad of awards and recognitions for our kids is just unbelievable. They really are, the kids of this community just do an amazing job, and it really shows at year end. But on top of that, they, set some business for next year, various policies as far as what lunches are gonna cost and all of those housekeeping items that have to happen before we go into the next school year. And then beyond that, they went into executive session for the contracts for our superintendent, which I believe is a 3-year contract, and also contracts for the folks that are the paras and support staff. So they were in executive session for that. And then this is their last, the June 8th meeting was their last Board of Ed meeting until they reconvene in September.
Thank you. Selectman Jason Van Stone.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Conservation Commission has not met since our last meeting. Met with EMS last week. 2-hour meeting focusing pretty much exclusively on the new EMS plan that they are putting together. They had noted some productive conversations with the First Selectman's office about trying to get a meeting put together of all the agency heads, police, fire, emergency management, because many of the goals, the objectives, and the planning in the plan have overlap with those services, especially obviously in the dispatch function. So they said they had been working with you, Tim, to kind of put that together, and they were appreciative of that. IPOC, as Wendy mentioned, we'll see them next quarter. Kathy hit strategic plan, and looking forward to the first tax abatement working group next week.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.